The third chapter of Poppy Playtime is by far the most hyped thing to ever come in the Poppy Playtime universe, releasing this year assuming all goes to plan. However, there are a ton of questions about this mysterious chapter yet to be answered. Who's the main protagonist? Where will the game take place? When will it finally be released? And today I wanted to combine all this information after digging through literally every piece of info the devs have ever released from Discord, Twitter, and all other outlets to give you guys everything new that we know about Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 going into the new year. And trust me, there's a lot of things that we missed. So the first question I want to get out of the way is when? When will Chapter 3 finally end up releasing? Well, 5 months ago, as I'm sure you know, we got a teaser trailer for the third chapter that doesn't really tell us too much. However, near the end, we are told that the game will release sometime in 2023, of course. However, in terms of specifics, there's a couple problems here with this release date. One, there's the fact that, as we'll talk about later, Chapter 3 is going to be massive in size and therefore will naturally take a lot longer. And two, the developers seem to be putting Chapter 3 on the back burner as of late to focus on their new multiplayer title, Project Playtime, which, while that title released about a month ago at this point for early access, unlike most games where you just release it and that's it, this game is going to constantly need content updates and patches to keep its healthy user base alive. They also said that they plan on releasing this game out of early access in the first half of 2023. So with that being said, there's basically no hope that Chapter 3 will be coming anytime soon, for the exact reason that they are clearly focusing on an entirely different game. That's not to say that they aren't working on Chapter 3 at all. They've said multiple times on Discord that they are actively working on both, and I even bothered to check their LinkedIn page, where recently they put up tons of new jobs, including both developer and mobile developer jobs, suggesting they are hastily expanding their team to work on Chapter 3 and its mobile counterpart releasing alongside with it. But overall, they are definitely taking their time on this chapter to make sure it's perfect, so I wouldn't expect it for months down the line, especially since in the teaser they didn't say early 2023, which if that was the case, they probably would have wanted to clarify to build more hype in the game like what they did with Chapter 2, but I digress. There's also a theory I've been seeing on places like Reddit that suggests that this barbecue party poster that we can find in Project Playtime could actually be an early teasing of the release date for the third chapter on July 15th, because that also happens to be the same date of the letter Rowan Stoll wrote for the Poppy Playtime ARG, so maybe they were trying to subliminally tell us something important specifically with that date. But there's also been some more negative theories floating about suggesting Chapter 3 could even get delayed, just because there's no denying it, Project Playtime was a massive success. Right now, it's even more popular than games like Among Us in terms of player bases, and as we've seen already, they've definitely been giving a lot of attention towards the second spin-off title. But on the other hand, let's be real, everybody knows Poppy Playtime for the Scary Factory exploration experience, and I'm sure they know the amount of hype around Chapter 3 greatly succeeds those of even Chapter 2 and Project Playtime, so in my opinion, I'm sure it's just a matter of time before we get a new trailer or something. However, that's all speculation, so I just assume the game will release sometime later in the year, and that's probably that. Anyway, moving into the contents of Chapter 3, what is this game actually going to be about, and how is it going to play when it does release? Well, we know for sure that the title will be taking place directly after Chapter 2 ends, as you'd obviously expect, and the chapter will take place in the location called the Playcare, which we hear about a couple times both on the sign that we crash next to in the end of the second chapter, and also at the end of the Chapter 3 teaser trailer announced by Elliot Ludwig.
I announced Playcare.
So the Playcare, whatever it may be, is incredibly important. And going into more depth, previous chapters tell us about Poppy and her personality along with the prototype, which we can obviously expect to learn more about in the third chapter. But most importantly, previously in Poppy Playtime, we find out that the game station from Chapter 2 is specifically where the children from the orphanage program we see in Chapter 1 were brought to be tested on based on their own physical ability. So moving into Chapter 3, we can assume, like the game station, the Playcare will probably be a place relating to these same kids who we know were experimented on later, possibly being the place they were all housed, since the name Playcare sounds so much like daycare. We also get a couple updates from the developers about the actual quality of the chapter, with them saying that Chapter 3 is going to be a lot scarier than the other two chapters, which depending on the person may or may not be a good thing, but it's something that I'm personally excited for, especially since they even said during brainstorming they had to remove ideas because the horror elements were so intense it would give the game a mature 18+ rating. The game is also set for a massive graphical improvement, because Chapter 3 is going to be the first chapter that will use Unreal Engine 5 according to their Discord server, which should be a massive improvement on graphics depending on what they do with said update. Another cool footnote in terms of game contents is that the developers last November basically confirmed to us that Chapter 3 doesn't have any planned scripted chase scenes, at least for now, with them saying that if they do another one in the future, they want to make it more fun because quite a few people found mommies infuriating. So apparently there are yet to be any plans for scripted chase sequences, which actually surprised me, because in my opinion, they were the real selling point of Poppy Playtime up until this point, and without the incredibly memorable Huggy vent chase scene that originally put the game on the map, I don't know if it would have ever gotten as popular as it is now. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do with this game mechanic, if they're planning on changing it or even just entirely removing it. But outside of the actual gameplay, the biggest question of all is we've had Huggy Wuggy in Chapter 1. We've had Mommy Longlegs in Chapter 2. So who is the new Chapter 3 main antagonist going to be? Well, I've made multiple full-blown videos discussing this exact topic, and I've came to a few different conclusions from never before seen characters like Daisy the Flower, or most recently, people have been theorizing that Boxy Boo from Project Playtime could also be in Chapter 3. However, to be honest, after doing some extensive digging into this topic, I think most of these theories are probably incorrect. Not because they don't hold validity or anything in the story, but rather because the developer Micah basically debunked all of this on Discord, confirming randomly in a message talking about Project Playtime, saying, I actually think the Chapter 3 toy is going to be pretty fun to play in Project Playtime once it's added in the future. Which, while it's a seemingly meaningless message, it sort of indirectly tells us that Huggy Wuggy and Mommy Longlegs obviously won't be returning, at least as the new chapter's main antagonist. And that also goes for Boxy Boo, meaning I was wrong about him being in Chapter 3 all along. So that pretty much puts all of those theories to rest. And it also pretty much wipes out any chance of Candy Cat, Brawn the Dinosaur, Boogie Bot, or any of the other toys we build in Project Playtime from being the Chapter 3 main antagonist as well, because whoever they aren't in Project Playtime currently yet. Also, recently the developers started holding a Project Playtime survey where people would vote for who they wanted to add into the game, and we can also pretty much rule out every one of these characters as well, because I highly doubt they'd miss the opportunity to hype up Project Playtime's release after Chapter 3 comes out by not releasing the new toy into the game. So I'm assuming all of these characters from the survey that you can vote for are just bonus characters that will only be added if the community actually wants them. But that's just pure assumption at this point, so take everything from that message with a grain of salt. But speaking overall, Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 is going to be by far the biggest chapter of the game in terms of fear factor, story importance, length even, and I honestly cannot wait. Let me know your theories about Chapter 3 in the comments below. Check this video out, subscribe, and peace.